Yeah, I'm back with a ton of new Violet Hold cards to review. And to start, I wanted to remind you of our friend Azalina Soulsever here, the worst legendary ever, because she's going to be some important context for some of the priest cards we're taking a look at today. Remember, on this one, you're going to copy 20 cards from your enemy, and then you'll be kind of naturally drawing through those throughout the course of a game, which is going to be important for stuff here like the Enthralled Shade, as we're seeing a little bit of a Thief Priest support package in this set. The Enthralled Shade is a 3-mana 4/3 undead with Death Rattle. Reduce the cost of cards in your hand that were copied from your opponent by 1. So a decent little discount here, I think, to help improve the quality basically of those cards from your opponent, because like we talked about yesterday with Azalina, that's generally 20 cards that you don't really know if you want, because they may not maybe like fit your game plan. They may be like super synergistic and just kind of hard to use, but theoretically, you know, by taking 1 mana off, that makes them all a little bit more viable, right? So like, even if the effect isn't crazy good for you, maybe now the stat line feels kind of good on curve, that sort of thing. Just softens up some of the rough edges of these cards that are hard to play, which, like, that's nice. I will say, like, we looked at this card yesterday though, right? This is in wild format right now. The Mysterious Visitor. This one at the battle cry, reduce the cost of cards copied from your opponent by 3. And this is only 1, which, that's an unfortunate comparison. Now, I kind of get it, right? Because with this one, it was a lot harder to copy cards from your opponent. You know, you had to like play cards to do it. They weren't just automatically in your deck from the very start of the game. So it makes sense that you can't have maybe Mysterious Visitor right now, but at the same time, it's sort of showing, like, you know, the harder you lean into this package, the harder it is for them to support it. And, you know, kind of in theory, like, they have to make worse cards because of how hard they've leaned in, which is this weird kind of dynamic. It doesn't necessarily make Enthralled Shade like bad or awful. It's just like, man, what a crazy comparison that is. I think Enthralled Shade would go a mile further if it also reduced the cost of cards in deck. Like, maybe that would be too much. I get it, but like, it's in this spot right now where, you know, theoretically this Death Rattle's not hitting until kind of turn 4 at the earliest. That's a little late because, you know, at that stage you're already missing windows to kind of create cool little tempo lines. So like, a 1 mana discount on turn 1 is way more significant than a 1 mana discount on turn 5 or 6 or whatever. So you know what I mean? Like, the kind of discount per available mana can be a lot swingier earlier in the game rather than later. So, you know, you're talking about like some mid-game swings basically instead of like early game opportunities. And it's just harder sometimes for those to be leveraged. Also, it's just a conversation too about like the number of cards you're going to have in hand at any given stage. Like, sometimes you're going to have 3 or 4 of your opponent's cards in hand when you slam an Enthralled Shade. Sometimes you might only have 1 or 2, and you're like, well, crap, I'm just going to have to hold on to the Enthralled Shade because I'm not getting enough discounts here to really make it worth it, which means I'm playing this guy on turn 5, on turn 6, and then again, it's like, well, that feels kind of too late. I'm pushing all of these discounts back another turn even further, which I think is a bit of a stress. Now, there are some like Death Rattle synergies here, of course, where you can just like copy these Death Rattle effects, resurrect this, give it Reborn, you know, play an Umbra if you want to eventually at some point, and just like discount everything in your hand down to 0, maybe eventually, right? Umbra going off with one of these is just a crazy discount where all of your opponent's cards are going to get crazy cheap. So you could take this in a different direction where it's almost like, I'm not really playing this maybe on turn 3, or if I am, I'm just doing it to set up an Umbra later. But some kind of almost combo setup where it's like, I'm just going to get to like turn 8 or 9 and just have a handful of stuff that's all 0, 1, 2 mana, maybe max, even for big cards, and just like blow them up all at once. But I think you have to ask, like, how easy is it to get there and still be in the game if you're just kind of slamming 3 mana 4/3? Certainly if you're slamming an Umbra, that's a dead turn if it's just doing discounts. I mean, I guess the Umbra you could follow up immediately with a lot of cards. That might not be too bad. But, you know, there's basically some just like filler turns where you're kind of buying time. Control Priest is the kind of deck that could maybe do that. But remember, your deck is diluted by half and you're like holding all these cards in hand to discount later. So do you have enough stuff left over to actually keep up in the game? You just start like asking all these questions. And usually with cards, anytime I start asking more and more and more and more questions, it's like, man, this keeps getting harder and harder and harder to imagine this being a great option. So we're going to take a look at a couple other cards. I'll kind of reconvene after that and see if we think this is enough to get there. Looking at just this one, I kind of gave Azalina a 3-star review yesterday because I thought this could be sort of a mid to low tier 3 deck, and she's like the centerpiece of it. Enthralled Shade doesn't hurt, certainly, but I was kind of, planning around these cards, vaguely aware of their existence. So I'm not like 2.75 stars. I'm not like at, like this one brought me down a little bit, I think, just because the discount's not significant enough or fast enough. It's delayed on a death rattle. Like, not super excited based on this one. So next up here is the Mind Sweeper. This is a 2-mana 2/3 with Battlecry. If you played a copy of an opponent's card while holding this, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Now this one, again, it's nice, but man, I wish it was just a little bigger on that AoE, right? Like 2 damage to all enemy minions is very efficient for 2 mana. Like, let's be clear, right? Super efficient. Like, the amount of output here for a 2-cost card is crazy high, but I have some concerns a little bit around timing, I think, where, for instance, turn 2 or 3 might actually be the right time to play this when there's a lot of little stuff out, but you may not have had time to draw or find a cheap enough card from your opponent by turn 2 or 3. And then as you get later and later into the game, when it's not going to have been hard to satisfy this condition, the 2 damage on this kind of falls off a little bit, where it's maybe not quite as impactful. Now, of course, you can still combine this together with other things, play a Medivh's Triumph and a Minesweeper, and now you're talking about, 6 damage AoE, which could really help. Like, this could kind of clean up any leftovers. This could combine with single target removal as well, deal 3, deal 2, boom, kill a 5/5 kind of thing, right? There will still definitely be moments where this aligns and creates some opportunities, because it's just 2 mana. It's kind of easy to weave in, but it does to me feel, again, like it's just sort of a solid card, not a like deck defining, archetype defining sort of thing where it's like, yes, this is the powerful tool I was looking for that makes my Azalina worth it. Because we're still saying Azalina ultimately is a pretty big downside, copying cards from your opponent. So I look at both of these and they do just feel solid. And like, in some ways, yes, I get it. Like, this still kind of looks busted. Like, when you compare, it's just, it's efficient for sure, right? A Holy Nova or whatever, not quite, but you get it. Like, on a bot, like, it's good, but it's not, this is going to win me the game kind of good, or it's not, this makes it worth it good levels, I don't think. I think it's just good. The last card was just kind of mediocre, maybe. This one's good, at least. I still don't know if that's enough to get me there, though. Like, we're going to see, but we're going to see one more card. This is Unshackle Soul. This is a 5-mana shadow spell. This one allows you to destroy a minion, so 5-cost Assassinate at a base. And if you played a copy of an opponent's card while holding this, this costs 1, which 1 mana hard removal, that's good. Like, that's actually good. Again, I don't know if it's game, it's not game definingly good necessarily, but I think it is the best, most efficient tool of the 3 we've seen here to support the Azalina package. Like, sometimes this is going to feel worth it on a random 4/4 Divine Shield Imbue guy, and it's like, okay, yeah, that was great. Sometimes it's going to destroy Big Colossal, and you're like, yes, that was amazing. The only kind of headache on this one, I guess, is that you do need to be holding it, so sometimes it's going to be a bit of an awkward top deck. Although, I don't know, as long as you have any other card from an opponent in hand, just throwing out a random 2-drop or whatever you got from them, probably not a big challenge to open this one up at 1. You're certainly not going to want to play this at 5. Also, to keep in mind, this is a shadow spell, which I think a lot of priests that are a little bit late game priests now are playing quests to get Medivh's Triumph in there. This would actually be a really nice cheap shadow spell to help you finish your quest. We're going to see some other quest priest kind of control cards as well, I think. So I am kind of seeing around this card this kind of quest, thief priest, control priest combination coming together. And you've now got a couple really good kind of control-y tools. You got the discount tool to maybe enable the thief priest side of it. It's there. I'm seeing shades of a decent deck, a hopeful deck at least. It's just still got that challenge of having 20 cards to your opponent. How do you make that work well? That's going to be, I just cannot envision this deck getting up to tier 2 status. It really still, despite these powerful boosts, I think when I look at all this combined, Azalina, Shade, Sweeper, Untitled Chapter, this looks like a mid tier 3 ceiling to me at best, which, you know, mid tier 3, when we talk about that, like on HS Replay, is a deck with technically a losing record, like, you know, 47% win rate or something, right? Like here's tier C on HS Replay right now, right? Like maybe we'll even say low tier 3, because like I'm thinking like 47% win rate, right? Like somewhere in this range where it's like you can kind of win some games with this, but it's going to be inconsistent and shaky. There will be games you feel like you just blow people out because you just hit good stuff and you hit the things at the right time. They have a good deck for you. There'll be other games that maybe feels like you just can't do much of anything. You also have to be mindful of how many packages you run. So it's like, because number one, you only have 20 slots available, right? So if you've already occupied basically 7 slots with Thief, if you have some quest support, so you probably can't like put Imbue in there as well, because you wouldn't have enough room for all your Imbue cards. Also, anything like Imbue that sort of needs a critical mass of stuff to get good, because you want to play more and more Imbue activators, it's less consistent that you'll actually find those, because you're going to get a bunch of cards from your opponent, you know, diluting your deck by half. Basically, half your draws won't support you. So I don't know, man. It's going to be really, really tough for this to come together. I think it's all just right. I'd like, if I could give this a review score that wasn't a 2 or a 3 collectively as a batch, I would give this like 2.72 stars. Something like that, right? Like where it's like kind of right in the middle of that space. So boy, it's close. I think it's close, but just, you can't expect this to be good ever. It's not going to be great. It's mediocre at best. Sometimes in some metas, and unless it gets future Thief pre-support cards, really struggling beyond that. I think, you know, there will be times when it's tier 4 and bottom of tier 4 just bad. Wild format though, I'm curious with some of this stuff. Like, can you just get enough that you go ham with some of these crazy discounts in Wild? Maybe that seems pretty nuts. So moving on to another priest card here. This is Holy Embrace. By the way, the art on all of these is just like Azalina straight on. Just like the art of Dark Embrace and Unsackled Soul is so confusingly similar. The framing, everything. It's kind of cool. I like it, but just crazy. Anyway, Holy Embrace, 2-mana holy spell, restore 4 health, and then get a Dark Embrace that deals 4 damage. So this is kind of a perfect quest priest card, right? You get a Holy and Shadow spell all in one. You draw 1, you get both activators. I will say Holy Embrace is probably not a card you're totally in love with on its own. Just 2-mana deal 4 is like, that's shaky. You do like Dark Embrace though. 2-mana deal 4 there is pretty cool. Now that said, you know, that I'm talking about that in the context of like just playing it as is straight up. But don't forget, we have Ruby Sanctum. Is that what it's called? Ruby Sanctum, the location for priest that is actually really sick. Ruby Sanctum it is called. I'm a genius. Your next healing effect this turn deals damage instead. We've seen this already be pretty powerful. Remember, you can boost up this heal with a 4-drop card whose name I cannot remember. I'm apparently not that big of a genius. I have no idea what that's called. The Cleansing Cleric. You could boost it up, right? So this could go up to 8. You could have this deal 8 and then also generate a deal 4 behind it. This could be sort of a 4-mana deal 12 combination in a Ruby Sanctum Cleansing Cleric deck that's looking to turn the corner there. So that actually looks pretty cool for this card. I think that's a really nice lethal inclusion in a Ruby Sanctum deck. I also think Quest Priest probably still finds an excuse to run this, even if you don't necessarily love the restore 4 health at a base. Maybe if it restores 8 health, it feels better, 6 health, etc. Right? So yeah, I actually think this card looks pretty interesting. I think this has some nice 2-part utility in essence. Next up is Hold Them Off, a 5-mana holy spell. Prepare, give a minion +5/+5, and life steal, which is kind of a cool idea for prepare here. Sometimes hard to weave together a buff and the minion you want to buff in a single turn, but if you get a chance to prepare anytime you got a spare 4 mana laying around, then you just load this up and save it for later. You know, Rush Minion might be a good target for this, but Priest doesn't exactly run a lot of... Does Priest have any Rush Minions, actually? Nothing's jumping to the top. I'm neutral, obviously, but like priest cards themselves. I actually think the card that I'm most interested in here, though, is maybe the Black Blood, the priest colossal, which I already thought was like kind of underrated. But in essence, you know, making this guy way bigger, turning him into a 5/14, not only gives him way more survivability as he's actually attacking, but also increases the amount of life you could gain. You could basically go to full off of Black Blood, but also the fact that he has life steal, you restore health to yourself every time he attacks, which triggers another attack if his colossal body parts, you know, weren't already enough. This basically gives you even more ways to chain together additional attacks on the Black Blood. So pretty cool. Like, you also, that's the kind of recovery where you basically like, okay, sure, I'm going to prepare turn 4 or whatever, turn 6 if you want, you know, just have a kind of a downturn. I'm going to take 10, 12 damage, 15 damage, 20 damage. As long as I don't die, I'm going to recover all of this back, right? Like, I'm gonna just reheal to full basically off of my Black Blood. So that's a cool turn. I mean, I think those moments exist. It's just always that same darn question I have to ask. Like, you can always come up with these moments where it's great, but is it worth running in your deck? Do you use this consistently in your deck, or is this just, you know, sometimes a good hit off your imbue hero power or whatever? I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be worth running in your deck. It's just like, because it might only be good with Black Blood. If you're not running other rush minions, like, of course, any minion that like sticks on board for an attack, like, yeah, sure, this is good. But number one, that's not always easy in priest decks, frankly. Number two is like that prepare does come with some downside and cost that's sometimes hard to work around. So ultimately, I don't know. I like it a lot with stuff like Medivh's Triumph because that's so cheap that you can prepare this really easily. Sometimes just take the reset with a 1 mana clear. We got like the 1 mana removal single target we just saw. Like, those are the kind of cards that leave you a lot of leftover mana to prepare, but at the same time, it's a really expensive card slot. That opportunity cost is super high. So I think this card's totally fine. I just don't think it makes the cut in deck lists. Moving on here to Spectre of Despair, a 2 mana 2/6 undead priest. If you miss Silence priest decks, don't despair, because you've got the Spectre of Despair. What am I doing? With taunt and can't attack. Which, by the way, this is kind of, again, a cool body for something like your lifesteal spell. Just like, hey, I don't care if this can attack or not. I'm just going to slam a ton of stats on this super cheap taunt and force my opponents to do it for me. I think that's a little riskier because just, you know, hard removal is always scary in those scenarios. And again, doesn't always line up well, but a possibility. So then the question is, like, is this just worth it to slam as a 2-drop? Just speed bump, disruption, slow the opponent down. It's the same kind of thing. Like, I'm sure there'll be moments where that feels fine, but you got to put this in your deck. And it's like, I don't know if people are going to put this in their deck. It's just no reason to really run this. You have other packages, other removal, other synergy pieces you need to achieve. You only have so many slots. This just doesn't feel like it's going to outcompete other cards. We also just don't really have good Silence priest support. There is the Royal Librarian is a Silence right now, but it, you know, it's not worth it, right? Usually you use that against like big stuff, not like small little stuff like this. You're kind of fine to have the taunts. I don't really think this is a Silence priest card, even though it kind of has those vibes of old. Maybe it's a teaser of things to come in the future, but I think ultimately this is just like, hey, I'm throwing out a 2/6 taunt and hoping it does something, but I don't think that's competitive enough. So moving on over to some Warlock cards. This is sick looking art. I love this. This is a 9 mana spell, Annihilation. Destroy all minions and then summon any demons in the bottom 3 cards of your deck. So when you look at it straight up, you're thinking, okay, I gotta have a like big demon deck, right? I gotta have this like monster, just like stuff my deck with giant demons. We already saw some of that with Morag as well, where I just want a deck that's full of giant demons, and I kind of hope somewhere on the bottom 3 cards. That's a tough ask, but I want to show you this card before we go on. The Imp Gang Stooge, a 3 mana 2/5 demon with Taunt and Death Rattle. Put a 9/9 demon with Taunt and Lifesteal on the bottom of your deck. So at some point, you know, you just play these Imp Gang Stooges, throw out 2 of those, just wait a minute, and then eventually when you get to turn 9, you rip Annihilation for this crazy swing turn where, you know, presumably you wipe out the opponent's board. maybe even activate some of your own death rattles for the record, and then you pull 2 9/9 demons with taunt for this monster swing that hopefully helps you stabilize. I'll be honest, that feels a little too honest these days in Hearthstone for me. I don't, big removal can still be impactful for sure, but 9 mana is awfully expensive. And like just couple 9/9 bodies at that stage of the game, again, good, don't get me wrong, but like it's just all happening so late, right? And it's perhaps dependent on running this to be good, and I don't really know that you want to run this card normally. An Imp Gang Stooge on its own actually kind of sucks, right? Again, with Morag, maybe it's a good Morag enabler, play this on 3, prepare on 4 for Morag, and then Morag here, like that's not bad. Getting a 9/9 taunt off your Morag is definitely the sort of thing you want to do. But it's all just kind of on the back foot and kind of conditional, and if you miss any step of those processes, right, like these other cards kind of break down a little bit, this just doesn't maybe work very often if you don't hit the Imp Gang Stooges early. The Morag plan, obviously that can have some redundancies built in, but then you also maybe don't need the Imp Gang Stooge for Morag. If you don't remember Morag, I should have showed him too, but the 10-drop demon who pulls a demon from your deck and then summons the Morag and creates a little chain of Morags. Like there's something here for sure, right? Like there is a deck here that's coming together. I see all of it lining up. This big demon deck is cool. I just worry it's not going to hold up against modern day Hearthstone. This feels like it's all happening kind of late and kind of slow and kind of passively. I don't know if you're going to be able to turn the corner and stabilize enough, particularly like Annihilation at 9. It feels like if I'm doing this deck, I will have already won earlier off of Morag or just other big demon stuff. And getting to Annihilation is like, it's not enough like late game craziness. We have so many just like late game crazy cards where the end of the game just goes nuts. Just like destroying minions in a 9/9 it's honest. It's not bad. I don't want to say it's bad. It just doesn't feel like a win condition, I guess. In the same ways that like a cheated Morag early might feel like a win condition. So then it's just that question of like, well, if I'm doing the Morag thing, does this just automatically go in there? And then how often does this actually impact the game? Or is this just kind of sitting like a, dead card in hand most of the time? That's where my question basically lies on Annihilation. I still think it's solid though. So I guess talking about the Imp Gang Stooge a little more independently here. This is a 3-mana 2/5 taunt and death rattle. Put a 9/9 demon with taunt and lifesteal on the bottom of your deck, which this is, a 2/5 taunt for 3 is it's a speed bump, right? It is decent that it just kind of slows down opponents, but in the average game with no other support, putting this demon on the bottom of your deck basically does nothing because you'll just never make it to fatigue in a normal game state, right? So of course you do have to have some kind of follow-up or enabler to make this worth it, whether that's the Annihilation eventually on turn 9, or maybe like we talked about Morag, putting some more good demons in the pool for Morag. I could make the argument that Morag would maybe not want these demons. Are they better than like a Void Lord or something, right? In other words, does this actually kind of poison the pool of big demons? Because I think I might rather have an Asphyxiodon or a Void Lord for my Morag. It's just a question of like, how many do you need to make sure you're hitting consistently? Those are the two that jump out. After that, it gets a little shaky. So maybe just having the option to shuffle in a few more is good so you don't miss. And, a 9/9 demon with taunt lifesteal's probably on the same stage as an Asphyxiodon. Although, I don't know, the Asphyxiodon's really nice. I should pull these cards up so you guys can actually see what I'm talking about, right? I don't know. Would you rather have a 9/9 taunt or would you rather have an Asphyxiodon? I don't know. Like, lifesteal could be better, but this end of turn effect is also sometimes really snowbally if it sticks for a turn or two. So I think I'd rather have the other ones, but anyway, it's a possibility. So the question is like, is it worth running a kind of mediocre 3-drop for a payoff that is likely very delayed? Because it's going to take potentially a long time to actually do anything with these 9/9 demons. Is it worth it? Is there some other like fatigue angle where you just shuffle a bunch of these in and well, shuffle, but add a bunch of these? There's a few hooks there for sure. I see some hooks on this. I just wish this was a little more like independently useful. Like if it shuffled the demons in even, well, I don't know if that's that useful either because you'd still have to pay some mana to play them. I don't know, just wish it had some extra bonus that made it good if I don't have the follow-ups, because right now it does feel like it falls flat. Moving on over to the Ancient Augur, a 4-mana 2/6 battle cry. Look at 3 cards in your opponent's hand and secretly choose one, then Death Rattle, discard it. So some disruption here. Take your opponent's win condition key combo card, or sometimes random garbage, because you got offered 3 choices of random garbage. This kind of has those Theatar vibes, where you are stealing something from your opponent, which I will say Theatar in his era was a very, very, very powerful card for sure. This unfortunately not exactly the same, because Theatar gave you the card that you were trading out from your opponent. And it did so immediately as well, which actually can be relevant, whereas this is sort of on a delay, and you don't get the card, they just lose it. So not quite as powerful of an exchange of power there, which, I will say too, like, I'm not even sure Theatar would be a great card these days. It doesn't feel like that would hold up particularly well. Gotta think about that, but I don't know, my instincts tell me that's true. What I'm getting at here is I don't think the Ancient Augur is particularly good either. Just hands are so big these days too, and full of so many generated resources, that the odds of you finding any specific thing you're looking to discard, or just any big win condition or whatever, frankly pretty slim. You get to pick 3 of 7 or 8 cards. Not always easy to find the thing that you're looking for, or even anything important. You might just get like 3 generated cards, or just some random stuff. And then again, you're spending 4 mana to do that, kind of taking a pass turn yourself, just playing a really sad little 2/6 body. And technically it's all on a delay. Could just take forever to actually discard it. They might be able to play it out before then, which they won't know. That's why it's important that it's secret, but still, it might take a couple turns, might get frozen, might just not die on board because 6 health is a lot, etc. There are ways for you to kill this off. You got like Herald deck and stuff, but that again feels like not the best use case of your Herald activators and everything. So fun, sneaky little card for sure, just not a great one. Moving on over to Warrior here, we have Crowd Control, 3-mana fire spell, which fire spells, we know, are already doing some cool stuff in Warrior. This one reads, deal 2 damage to all minions. If your deck has 25 or more cards, deal 2 more, which we saw Chain Breaker Hogger here, of course, the ability to add some extra duplicate legendaries to your deck, which is going to be perfect here. Trying to pull up Hogger so you guys can remember. Duplicate all the legendaries, so maybe get up to 30-40 cards in deck at the start of the game, and then by the time you need to play your crowd control, hopefully you still have 25 cards in deck to make this a really good AoE, right? A deal 4 is quite nice for 3 mana. That's going to feel good through multiple stages of the mid game, still feel like competitive. And frankly, sometimes with Warrior 2, even just having kind of an activator for execute style effects, even if you only had the front half of this, might still be okay. It's not terrible at a baseline, particularly because fire synergies is another angle to consider on that too. Probably okay at a baseline. I think really, really quite good when it's activated. And I also want to show you this card too, because it's important context. Scramble for Gear, a 1-mana spell, gain 2 armor and shuffle 5 gear spells in your deck that give 2 armor when drawn. So this is a way to add 5, 10 or more, if you get more of these copies somehow, to your deck as well. So another way beyond Hogger to increase the size of your deck, so that maybe crowd control is not just restricted to Hogger decks. And then there are also technically some neutral cards too, stuff like Illusory Greenwing, we know can be a great card, technically adding a couple extra cards to your deck. So I do wonder if there is a control warrior path where you don't feel like you necessarily have to go into Hogger, which may not be the best control warrior card necessarily, although I think could still technically fit too. Might just be a pure control warrior, or even like a quest warrior deck too, because Quest Warrior, also the Quest Warrior shuffles cards into your deck. I wonder if there aren't a handful of ways to actually make this active despite Hogger, which does give it like an extra boost. Another whole deck archetype viability here is a possibility too. So I actually think this is pretty cool, because even if you miss, not a total disaster necessarily for Warrior, and I think a lot of different ways to make sure this hits. Looks pretty great. So moving on to Scramble for Gear. Again, this is a 1-mana spell, gain 2 armor, and then shuffle 5 gear spells in your deck that give 2 armor when drawn, which I like this a lot. This is basically eventually a 1 mana gain 12 armor card, which I love armor, love life gain, love defense. That's perfect for me. We already talked about how the shuffling in can be helpful. And by the way, there's going to be more cards that care about that as well. So keep an eye out for that. So the actually aspect of having the bigger deck is nice. Of course, you know, cast when drawn cards like this too don't really hurt your draw or disrupt or anything like that. So perfect to have, you know, these little bonuses in your deck can really go a long way. And sometimes we even see like bonus synergies off cast when drawn cards on top of that too. So at the end of the day, I like this a lot. I think you just find a moment to weave this in, just make your deck, you know, nice and defensive. The 2 armor immediately is not great, but 1 mana is such a low price to pay for that I think it's going to be worth it. And sometimes it might still be a little armor enabler you need, might just give you just a little window to survive for those big swings later. So yeah, I absolutely love this sort of card. I think it's great. So next up is the Scrappy Defender, a 4 mana 2/7 with taunt and has +5 attack if your deck has 25 or more cards. So this is a 4 mana 7/7. The memes write themselves as long as you have a big stuffed deck, which, yeah, I actually think this again is kind of okay. It's one of those cards I could see this getting left out, but I think a lot of versions of these decks will find it worth it. It has the taunt angle, so a control deck still probably says, yeah, I'm actually okay with playing a 7 health taunt on turn 4 sometimes. And I could also see these decks having kind of a mix of a little bit of aggressiveness tied in, just because like Hogger might give you some meaty legendaries, you know, but like in other words, like if you play this on turn 8 as a 7/7 alongside some other big stuff, and like, you know, there's maybe a Ragnaros coming, or just big, you know, we might have the Logosh cards, right? The like Logosh and Brawl and all those, like, you know, there's some like threatening bodies basically possible in a Hogger list where this feels like it probably fits in, like a pile of 7/7s basically with Logosh in particular. Like, yeah, some kind of critical mass of just dudes. The blood fighters is the word I'm looking for on those, by the way. Brawl, Valyria, and Logosh. I could kind of see all that coming together. It's just like, yeah, he's defensive enough and threatening enough that's exactly the middle ground some versions of that deck will consider. Maybe purely like control focus versions might cut this, but still taunt, it fits in okay. So I think this card's actually scrappy okay. Not amazing, but scrappy okay. And then finally here we have the Rampaging Hound, a 7 mana 3/12 beast with Prepare and Battlecry force all enemy minions to attack this. So basically kind of a board clear tool here where you prepare this at any given stage, and then you have this 3/12 that can kind of wipe up small boards with 3 attack. I guess you could hand buff this or give it some boosts to make that a little bit better. But honestly, man, you're already talking about a pretty expensive board clear at 7, because even if you prepare it earlier, like, you know, you're still spending that mana, still floating. You're going to need the board clear because you prepared, right? Kind of awkward. I just, like, when I look at this, I'm like thinking to myself, man, couldn't this have been like way better? Like, couldn't this just have been a 5/12? Why does it need to be a 3/12? You know, could this have been a 6 mana 3/12? Maybe not. I don't know, because I guess at some level, like, it would be decent just to play it. You know, 6 mana 3/12 is probably just playable. You don't even think about preparing it in that case. 7 mana 3/12 doesn't feel quite as playable. I don't know. I guess maybe it's a trap to think about this all in. Like, you know, if I think a 7 mana card is bad and a 0 mana version of this is bad because I had to float 6 mana at some point, right? But maybe there's some sweet spot there where it's like, you know, I float 2. I just have some turn where I don't have any, you know, I'm just a control warrior. I got 2 spare mana somewhere along the way, right? I float 2 and this goes down to 4. Is this a good 4 mana card at some point? Yes. It's still, you know, total of 6 basically, but maybe that's okay. I hate to always go back to this, but it's just how Hearthstone works these days. Like, cards have to be super synergistic. They have to fit game plans really, really well. And it does, again, feel like one of those cards that's like, yeah, that's fine, but why am I running it? That's, in some ways, it sounds like a cop-out to keep going back to that argument, but that's how deck lists are made. Like, you know, you're down to those last 4 spots. You're picking your cards you need to have, you know. This might be card 31. in a lot of lists. I could see that, but I think it's okay if I think about that middle ground area where it's like, yeah, control warriors definitely have a moment or two to weave in 2-3 mana discount on this, and it becomes kind of a nice filler of a turn later where you combine this out with something else. You know, play this alongside a Scrappy Defender on some turn. It's actually a pretty good turn, right? You got like 4 mana Rampaging Hound, 4 mana Scrappy Defender. That's a turn a lot of decks would be okay with. So yeah, I guess I do think this is just fine. Well, that said, let's go ahead and rate all these cards from 1 to 5 stars. Enthralled Shade is a 3-star card. Minesweeper is a 3-star card. Unshackle Soul is a 3-star card. Holy Embrace is a 4-star card. Hold Them Off is a 2-star card. Spectre of Despair is a 2-star card. Annihilation is a 3-star card. Imp Gang Stooge is a 3-star card. Ancient Augur is a 2-star card. Crowd Control is a 4-star card. Scramble for Gear is a 4-star card. Scrappy Defender is a 3-star card. Rampaging Hound is a 3-star card. This is one of those where I wish I did half scores, because like Scrappy Defender would be 3.5 and Rampaging Hound would be 3. You know what I mean? Like I think these are a little different, but I'm also just not willing to give Scrappy Defender the nod to 4. And this is where you say, well, Regis, these are your reviews, do what you want. If you want to do half stars, do it, because it'd be the same thing. Like Unshackle Soul would be 3.5, and Enthralled Shade would probably be 2.5, and Minesweeper might be a true 3. But again, I don't do that. We're forcing ourselves to make hard calls here. And that's just how like Trump and everybody did it back in the day. That's what people expected in Hearthstone reviews. You know, I could do a 100-point scale across 5 different vectors. Like, you know, there's lots of ways to make these more accurate and interesting, because some cards, it's like the likelihood of success is different than the, like, you know, a card might have a 15% chance to be good because it needs super synergistic packages, but be an insane 5-star card when it is. Other cards might have a 70% chance to be really good, but only have, you know, a like 3-star power level impact. And how do you compare those two things, right? It's so hard to like put those into the same box. But anyway, this is a whole separate conversation I've thought about for 12 years or something now. So anyway, kind of a mixed bag is what I'm getting at. I think a lot of cards here that could land in a like, this deck is low tier 3 or whatever, but the cards feel fine in that deck kind of space. Some other things I think do just make the cut across the board, like some of these warrior cards, a couple of these priest cards maybe. So all in all, share your thoughts on these down below. Is Thief Priest gonna get there? I think 2.5 to 2.75 stars is where I land on the package in total. But anyway, share those thoughts. Thanks much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.